Hey everyone, welcome back. You know that urge we all have, like wanting to please other people? Well, today we're gonna really kind of dig into that idea and ask ourselves, like, what if that urge to please everyone is actually, kind of holding us back in life?
Okay, yeah.
So you guys sent in this YouTube video called "Stop Pleasing Others: The Philosophical Blueprint to Happiness."
Okay.
It's from the Deep Thinking Man, and it really got us thinking here at the show
Thanks,
about all the downsides of, of being a people pleaser.
You know what I think is so interesting about this video is how it goes like way beyond just giving advice, you know?
Right.
Like it's not one of those like 5 tips to stop being a people pleaser.
Exactly.
It really uses these philosophical ideas and thought experiments to help us understand why we even seek validation in the first place.
I love that. It's really making us like stop and think about it, you
Yeah.
know. It's not just like these little, quick fixes or whatever. And one of the things that really jumped out at me was this whole idea of the illusion of control when it comes to, like how other people see us. We spend so much time and energy worrying about what other people think, but like, can we really control that?
The video is basically saying that we can't.
Hmm.
And I think that that's a really powerful thing to realize,
Yeah.
because we all see the world like through our own, set of lenses, right?
Yeah.
Shaped by all of our past experiences and our insecurities, our beliefs, all that stuff. So you could try to present a certain image, you could try to, I don't know, project a certain image, but someone might interpret it totally differently based on like their own stuff that they're bringing to the table.
Yeah, it's like we think we're the director of this movie about our lives
Yeah.
and like carefully crafting each scene, but everyone in the audience is watching it through their own like personalized filter.
Exactly. The video gives us a great example about like how when someone judges you, it's not actually about you.
Whoa.
It's like they're projecting their own inner world onto you. Your actions are just like a trigger for something that's already inside them.
Okay, so that's making me like totally rethink how I look at like criticism now. How do you think this idea can change the way that we like interact with other people?
Well, for me, it makes me a little less reactive to other people's opinions.
I see what you mean.
Because if you understand that their judgments are often more about them than you, then like you don't have to take it so personally.
Oh, that's freeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like taking back some of that power that we didn't even realize we were giving away, you know? Now, the video also talks about this authenticity paradox. And I have to admit, I was a little puzzled by this at first.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. I think the authenticity paradox is basically like it means the harder we try to appear authentic to gain approval, the less genuine we actually become.
Yeah. So it's like trying too hard to be cool, it just like backfires.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's like not authentic.
Yeah, like, think about the people that we really admire for being like genuine people.
Right.
They're not like trying to prove anything. They're just being themselves.
Oh, that actually reminds me of someone I used to work with. She was always like trying so hard to impress the boss, always volunteering for extra projects and like agreeing with everything he said. It felt so like forced, And it's like ironic because I actually think it had the opposite effect.
That's a perfect example. That's exactly how this paradox plays out in real life, right? Like when we're so focused on trying to gain approval through a performance of authenticity, we actually lose sight of what actually makes us genuine.
So how do we break free from that like cycle?
The video basically says the first step is recognizing the cost of, constantly seeking that approval. Like it can drain our energy and our time and even like our sense of self.
Yeah, we touched on that a little bit earlier, but let's dive into like the cost of approval a little bit deeper. What are some of the ways that this need for validation can like really negatively impact our lives?
Well, I mean, like, think about all the times that you said yes when you actually wanted to say no just to, like, avoid disappointing somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you took on, like, extra work or extra projects to try and prove yourself, even if it meant, like, sacrificing your own time or well-being.
Can you think of a time when you said yes when you really wanted to say no?
Oh, absolutely.
And like, how did that make you feel?
Just last week, a colleague asked me to, like, cover this presentation for them last minute.
Oh, no.
And I was already like so swamped with deadlines, but I didn't want to let them down. So I said yes.
Right.
And honestly, I felt resentful. Like I had just sacrificed my own needs to please someone else.
Yeah.
And it ended up impacting my own work because I had to rush through everything.
Yeah, it's like that analogy the video uses about giving someone else the paintbrush to your life's canvas. You end up with this picture that, like, might look good on the outside, but it's not really reflecting your vision at all.
Yeah, and I think that's the danger of constantly looking for that approval.
Mm.
We end up shaping our lives based on other people's preferences, not even our own.
And it can be so subtle, too. It's
Yeah,
not always like these big dramatic choices, right?
absolutely.
Sometimes it's the little things, like the clothes we wear or the hobbies we choose or even, like the opinions that we express.
Right, and over time, those small compromises, they add up.
Yeah.
They really do.
And then you end up feeling kind of disconnected from your true self.
Exactly.
So we've talked about, how seeking approval all the time can really be costly. But like, what's the alternative,
Yeah.
right? If we're not supposed to live for other people's validation, what should we be striving for?
The video suggests that the key is to shift our focus inward. It's about cultivating a sense of self-acceptance and learning to value ourselves for who we are. Not needing to seek that validation from outside sources.
That makes sense, but it also sounds like kind of daunting, Like, where do we even begin with that?
Well, the video acknowledges that it's a journey, not a destination.
Oh, okay.
And it starts with, like, just becoming more aware of our own thoughts and behaviors.
Okay.
So, like, the next time you find yourself making a decision based on what someone else might think, just, like, pause for a sec
Right.
and ask yourself, is this what I really want?
That's a really simple but powerful question.
Yeah.
It's about becoming like more conscious of the choices that we're making.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that we do have a choice.
Yeah.
We can choose to live our lives according to someone else's script,
Hmm.
or we can choose to write our own story.
Okay, so we've talked about like the problem, right? This need to please other people and the potential cost of that. But what about the solutions? How do we actually like start to break free from this pattern and embrace our authentic selves?
That's where things get really interesting, and that's actually what we're going to be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
Oh, okay. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
All right, so stay tuned for that.
Okay, so we've been talking about how constantly seeking approval can have some um, pretty hefty costs. But, like,
Yeah.
how do we actually start to break free from, like, that pattern,
Right.
The video suggests we need to kind of shift our focus inward towards self-acceptance.
Okay. And I think that's where things get really interesting because it's easy to like say love yourself or whatever.
Right.
But putting that into practice,
Totally.
like that can be a whole other challenge.
Absolutely. The video uses this powerful analogy of a mirror to kind of illustrate this point. Like, imagine looking into a mirror, but instead of seeing, like, your physical appearance,
Right.
you see, like, your true self, the self that exists when no one else is watching.
Okay.
Would you even recognize that person?
That's a pretty intense visual and a little unsettling, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much of who we are is like shaped by needing that validation from other people.
Exactly. The video is arguing that if our sense of self is totally dependent on the approval of others,
Yeah.
then we're basically like living in this hall of mirrors,
Oh, wow.
constantly adjusting our reflections based on, like, who's watching.
So how do we break free from that hall of mirrors and actually find that true reflection?
The video suggests it's about cultivating, like, a sense of self-awareness,
Okay.
taking the time to understand our own values, our strengths, and even our weaknesses, but, like, without judgment.
That reminds me of something we were talking about earlier, that fear of stillness. Like, the video says it's often easier to stay busy seeking validation than to, actually face that discomfort of self-reflection.
Oh, it's true. It's true. Looking inward can be really uncomfortable. It can bring up all sorts of, like, insecurities and doubts.
Right.
But the video is saying that it's in that space of introspection that we can actually discover who we are.
So we have to be willing to, like, actually sit with those uncomfortable feelings instead of just immediately trying to distract ourselves or, like, seek validation from other people.
Exactly. And the video suggests the more we actually practice this, the easier it becomes.
So it's like building a muscle.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the more we exercise our self-awareness, the stronger it gets.
The stronger it gets, yeah.
Okay, so it's about getting to know ourselves on a deeper level beyond, like the surface level of how other people perceive us. But what about those really deep ingrained fears, those fears of rejection and judgment? How do we deal with those?
The video acknowledges that those fears are, like, super real.
Yeah.
But it also encourages us to kind of, like, examine where those fears are coming from,
Right.
Like, Are they based on past experiences?
Yeah.
Or are they rooted in like limiting beliefs that we've internalized?
It's like we're carrying around these old scripts from childhood that tell us we have to be a certain way to
Yes.
be loved and accepted, you know?
Exactly, exactly. And the video is like challenging us to question those scripts.
Okay.
Like, is this really true?
Uh,
Or is this just an old story I'm telling myself?
So it's about recognizing that those fears might not be based on reality, but on these, outdated beliefs
Yeah.
that don't even serve us anymore.
That's right. And once we start to question those beliefs, we can actually start to like challenge them.
Right.
We can actually create a new narrative for ourselves,
Yeah.
one that's based on our own values and desires.
That's incredibly empowering. It's like taking back control of our own stories.
Absolutely. And the video argues that as we become more comfortable with ourselves, we're going to naturally attract people who appreciate us for who we are,
Right.
not for who they want us to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like if we're radiating authenticity, then
Yeah.
we're more likely to attract people who resonate with that.
Totally.
Yeah.
And those are the relationships that are really fulfilling.
Right.
The ones where we can just be ourselves without like pretense or the need for constant approval.
Okay, so we're starting to see how this shift in focus from external validation to self-acceptance
Yeah.
can really lead to like more genuine connections and a greater sense of personal fulfillment.
Yeah.
But the video also talks about how this process can be, uncomfortable, even messy at times.
Yes, it does. It does. It acknowledges that letting go of the need to please everyone can bring up like feelings of loneliness or a fear of missing out.
Like, what if we're not like constantly seeking validation? Will people still like want to be around us?
Yeah, that's a very valid concern.
Yeah.
But the video suggests that this is where it becomes like really crucial to differentiate between like true connection
Yeah.
and just superficial validation.
So it's about recognizing that like not every relationship is meant to last.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's okay, exactly. And it's about like being willing to let go of the relationships that don't serve us anymore,
Yeah.
even if it's painful.
Right.
Because like clinging to those relationships out of a need for approval
Yeah.
is ultimately keeping us stuck.
This whole conversation is making me really rethink how I approach relationships.
Mm.
I think I've definitely held on to some out of like a sense of obligation or a fear of being alone.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Yeah.
But the video reminds us that true freedom comes from the ability to like choose our connections,
Right.
not from clinging to them out of fear or a need for, approval.
Now, the video also talks about kindness and how we often kind of equate pleasing others with being kind.
Yes.
But what if true kindness actually starts with being kind to ourselves?
That's such a good point. Because when we're so focused on like meeting the needs of other people,
Yeah.
we often like totally neglect our own.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yes, exactly.
We can't truly give to others if we're running on empty.
You got it.
Yeah.
And the video suggests that like practicing self-care isn't selfish, it's essential.
Okay, so how do we incorporate this idea of self-kindness into our like daily lives? What are some practical steps that we can actually take?
Well, it could be like something as simple as setting aside some time each day for, activities that nourish you. Maybe it's like taking a walk in nature or reading a good book or even just taking a few minutes to just be still and breathe.
It's about recognizing that our needs are just as important as the needs of others.
Yes.
And that it's okay to prioritize our own well-being.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And the video reminds us that every time we like say yes to someone else, we're saying no to something else.
Right.
Maybe even to ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's about becoming more mindful of the choices that we're making and making sure that they like align with our values.
That's a powerful reminder. So we've been exploring how shifting our focus from external validation to self-acceptance can lead to more genuine connections and a greater sense of personal fulfillment.
Yeah.
But how do we navigate like those inevitable challenges
Yeah.
that come with, letting go of the need to please everyone?
That is a great question. And that is exactly what we'll be diving into in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've talked about, how all the seeking approval can really backfire and how shifting our focus to, accepting ourselves can lead to more genuine connections and more happiness, basically.
Yeah.
But let's be real for a second. Like letting go of that need to please everyone can be scary. What what happens when we face, pushback or disapproval from people?
You're right. Not everyone is going to be happy about this like whole journey of self-discovery. Some
Mm,
people might feel threatened by like our new authenticity,
yeah.
or maybe they'll try and pull us back into those old like people-pleasing patterns.
Yeah, it's like maybe they're just used to us like always saying yes or playing a certain role. Yeah. And now, the script is flipped.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Mhm.
And that's where boundaries become like so important. The video talks about how we need to set like clear boundaries to protect our energy and our well-being.
So we're talking about like learning to say no even when it's uncomfortable.
It's about recognizing that we have a right to prioritize our own needs,
Okay.
and that saying no to something doesn't mean we're like rejecting the person.
Right.
It just means that we're respecting ourselves.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not about being like selfish or inconsiderate. It's just about finding like a healthy balance between, giving to others and honoring our own needs.
Exactly. And the video reminds us that not every relationship is meant to last.
Right.
And sometimes like letting go of a relationship, even if it's like really painful,
Right.
can be the kindest thing we can do for ourselves and for the other person too.
This whole conversation makes me think of that saying, you can't please everyone, so you might as well please yourself. But what if we don't even know like who our true selves are?
Yeah, that's a big one.
You know what I mean?
The video acknowledges that this whole journey of self-discovery can be like a lifelong process.
Right.
It's not about reaching some like fixed destination.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the journey itself.
So it's okay to not have all the answers like right away, to just
Yeah.
like be curious and explore who we are without judgment or anything.
Totally, totally. It's about giving ourselves permission to evolve and to change and to discover new aspects of ourselves along the way.
The video it uses this really interesting thought experiment
Okay.
to illustrate this whole like idea of embracing our true selves. Like imagine you're on a stage,
Right.
but instead of performing for the audience, you just like stand there, like completely unfiltered, no mask, no pretense.
So it's about having the courage to just like be seen for who we really are,
Yeah.
even if it feels vulnerable.
Right, right. What do you think would happen if we were all just like a little bit more willing to do that?
Honestly, I think we'd be really surprised by the connections that we would make.
I think so too.
You know,
Yeah.
like when we show up authentically, we give other people permission to do the same,
Yeah.
and that creates a space for like real connection and understanding.
That actually reminds me of something you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Like that difference between, true connection and just like superficial validation. Maybe when we're seeking approval, we're actually putting up walls that prevent us from forming like those really deep connections.
Oh yeah, you're totally right. It's like we're hiding behind these masks, afraid to reveal our true selves because we're scared of rejection.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the funny thing is that like the more we hide, the more disconnected we end up feeling.
Oh, so it's like a paradox.
Wait.
The more we try to like protect ourselves from rejection by seeking approval, the more we like isolate ourselves from actual genuine connection.
That's exactly it. And that's
Mhm.
why the video like encourages us to embrace vulnerability
Right.
as a strength, not a weakness.
This whole conversation has been so insightful for me. It's made me realize how much energy I've wasted like trying to fit into boxes that were never even meant for me.
I think that's a really common experience.
Yeah.
Like we're often conditioned from such a young age to like conform to certain expectations.
Right.
And it can take a lot of work to like unlearn those patterns.
But the good news is like we have the power to like rewrite the script. We can choose to embrace our authentic selves, even with all of our imperfections and quirks.
Totally. And the
Yeah.
more we do that, the more we'll attract people who appreciate us, like for who we really are.
Right. Not for who they want us to be. That is such a freeing thought.
It is free.
And it brings us back to that core message from the video.
Yeah.
Like you'll never be everything to everyone, but you can always be everything to yourself.
What a powerful reminder.
Mm.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage all of you listening to think about like what resonated with you the most today?
Yeah.
What what small step can you take today to prioritize your needs and embrace your authentic self?
Maybe it's setting a boundary or saying no to something you don't really want to do, or just like taking some time for yourself,
Yeah.
to connect with what really matters to you. Whatever it is, just remember you have the power to choose.
You do have the power.
Yeah, you have the power to create a life that like really feels aligned with who you are, not
Yeah.
who you think you should be.
Love that.
So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing that incredible power of your own authenticity.